Hey everyone, welcome to Jake's Council Report. I'm Jake Tonkel. I'm running for San Jose City Council here in District 6, and I'm bringing you the most important topic of today's City Council meeting in San Jose, the emergency response for our unhoused. Right. We'll be covering the proposal that's going to be talked about later this afternoon, as well as some critical analysis of the unhoused crisis during COVID-19, and answer some questions about the proposal and past and present options for the city of San Jose. Right. Please share this live stream on your timeline with your friends. Every little bit helps reach a new audience so that we can educate people and then get their feedback on what they want to see for our city, what they want to see for our community. Thank you for joining. Let's get to it. So, what's happening today? We have 90 trailers given to us by the state of California that are going to be located in a lot just behind Happy Hollow off of Story Road and Roberts Avenue. And they're trailers we got about a month ago, and we're finally implementing a plan to get some of our most vulnerable and high-risk unhoused residents into those trailers. It's a plan that covers medical, security, and basic services like laundry for our unhoused neighbors. What we really want to start talking about, though, is the historic understanding of the unhoused crisis, how we've been implementing it, implementing solutions along the way. Right now, as of the COVID-19 emergency, we only have implemented about 450 temporary beds for those that are on our streets. We have 600 hotel rooms across the county that are reserved for when our unhoused neighbors test positive for COVID. We have a certain challenge there as well, because in order to identify who tests positive for COVID and get them into these 600 rooms, we actually have to test more than 600 people that are living on our streets, and we're struggling to do that as it is. Other background information, right? The urgency of this pandemic has forced local governments to act quickly, especially in vulnerable populations. This can be our unhoused community. We're seeing more than ever that it targets our low income and communities of color, with almost 4 times as many positive cases on the east side of San Jose than on the west side. Understanding that those are the families that are working, they're traveling, they're unable to shelter in place and pay rent, just like our unhoused community cannot stay home because they do not have a place to stay. This worsens community spread. It affects all of us, not just those that are sick, but when someone is on the bus going to work, when an unhoused person is leaving a food distribution site and trying to go back to where they have some form of shelter, that adds risk to everybody. This impacts us in an extremely wide breadth of areas because our housing crisis is not a new emergency. This has been something that we did not necessarily take extremely seriously until COVID-19 has exacerbated the inequity that we see in our city, and it has a financial and a moral responsibility to it. We can do both, right? Our unhoused population costs us about $520 million per year as we look at the different areas that they need service in across the county of Santa Clara and through the city of San Jose. The unfortunate part is that only about 13% of that $520 million is for social services for the people that need it most. The rest, emergency room care, health care, police, and jail services. So we're being extremely reactionary, and we have been for a very long time because we have not adequately addressed our unhoused crisis. In COVID-19, it's even worse. Before the COVID-19 emergency, we had about 3 people going unhoused for every 1 person we sheltered, which meant we still were not keeping up with the problem before everything came to this shelter-in-place scenario. We have to act quickly, but we also have to get community input. There needs to be meeting after meeting on how we correctly shelter our unhoused community. And unfortunately, we've had some meetings with very little progress. Again, it's a lack of fiscal and moral responsibility that we're seeing and we have to make a difference, and we have to do it now. What we're looking at temporary shelters. Bascom Community Center, which is in District 6, has been a temporary shelter for a long time in the evenings, but we have to open up more of these avenues to house people. There's only about 40 people that can stay in each of these community centers. Some of these shelters are even less, 10 to 12 people. And so a lot of people leave us asking, what about hotels, right? The governor has put in Project Room Key, which is the opportunity for cities to utilize funds in order to buy hotels for spaces for our unhoused. Like I said, we have about 600 hotel rooms on reserve, but what's the balance that's appropriate for our community in terms of who we're housing in a reactionary way after they've tested positive versus who we're housing in a proactive way, keeping them off the streets and safe and secure. One of the challenges that we have in these temporary parking, whether it's trailers, temporary housing scenarios, is how do we keep everyone in the camp safe and keep the community healthy and thriving. One of the biggest concerns that we're hearing from public comment, from the letters that are being sent to the council members today, is the fact that people are concerned about Happy Hollow and how it's going to go through its reopening. It's something that needs to be looked at right now. The temporary housing trailers that are going on this lot are set to stay through October 31st. So it's 6 months of shelter for these folks that will provide medical assistance if needed. There's already a fence around the area so that we can make sure that as people come in and out, even in shelter in place, people will still need to leave, but as they come in and out, that their temperature will be taken, they will be screened for other symptoms in order to keep everyone that's in the temporary shelters as well, the trailers, safe during COVID. What the CDC has asked of cities and required of cities actually is that we use the first shelters we get for our most at-risk individuals. So the community as well that it's going to be housed in these 90 temporary shelters are people that are 50 or older with 3 or more underlying health conditions, or people of any age that have 3 severe underlying health conditions. And the CDC and the city are open to interpretation of what that looks like, as well as the county for who gets to be housed as well. We got a couple of minutes, so I will take a question or two off of comments here. We have Oscar who's saying many people in the immigrant community want to know, how can you help these people because they support the economy too, right? It's a big piece of this, Oscar. We know that in order for us to shift to a post-COVID economic world or post-COVID economic city, we're going to have to make sure that everyone's safe and healthy, that our workers are being taken care of as well as they're going back to work. This means proper protective equipment. And if we can't even supply that for the unhoused residents that are on the street, we have over 6,000 that are living on the street. And there are groups that are trying to get them equipment that struggle to get sanitizer, struggle to get masks. The city needs to step up and make sure that as we go off of our shelter in place, that we have those protective equipment for all the workers as well, in order to limit community spread in that scenario. I think that's it for comments. So I am happy to take questions. Please shoot me an email if you need to. It's vote@jakeford6.com. You can also post comments here later and we'll follow up with answers via text. But as always, thank you for tuning in. Be safe, stay home when you can, and make sure you're engaging in our city processes, in the community engagement that's needed during this difficult emergency. So thank you all, and hopefully I'll talk to you soon.